not here at this tournament, knock them out in that best of 5. And you cannot afford to take Dusty lightly in this game, just in the same way that our NLC third seed can accuse of, which is being a little passive in the early game. You've got the Callista, you've got the dive options. Let's see the early aggro towards that bot side.
Yeah, and you cannot afford to be passive when you have an Ahri and a Lee Sin as your mid jungle 2v2, especially when there are lanes which you need to impact. As a 2v2, Callista and Renata obviously very dominant, but where this gets a breaking point is when they get twinned up with one other person roaming to their lane, forcing the fight and then rolling over with an advantage. You need to see someone from this mid jungle either shutting down this Darius or going full on towards that bot lane and making sure that this Aphelios is out of the game. And of course, Denvoxner did have one of those games.
He did.
On the Aphelios, where they were kind of shut out of the game early against a Draven that got 3,000-4,000 gold ahead. Of course, Dusty brought that back to a win, but it shows there is a precedent, at least for Dusty's bot lane, when things aren't all right as rain. Can be pushed under a little.
We'll keep our eyes on that. Definitely an option you can see on the CS score. It's first Ward to Inax, who's clearly cleared one out nice and early, courtesy of the sweep picked up by Camilius at the beginning of the game. So slight advantage then when you're fighting for things like the level 2 can potentially make a difference, especially with something as aggressive as a Callista and Renata can be. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But again, I do want to take a bit of a moment to talk about bigger picture here as well, because every single team in these last 3 games, all 6, are currently undefeated. All of them looking to be contenders for deep runs into playoffs, potentially even champions for a number of those LFL teams, of course, who are the bearers of the will of Karmine Corps who didn't make it. And that does make these games incredibly important as litmus tests for viewers, for analysts, and for the teams themselves about where exactly the strength of the various regions in these currently undefeated teams really lie.
And that's one of my favorite parts about Amazon E-Masters, because you get to sit here and you go, all right, let's see, Rhea, where you really stack up. All of these fans, all of these folks on Twitter and your social media are saying how good their teams are. Let's see how it works actually on the battlefield, on Summoner's Rift. So in this game, get to see how Dusty will approach this LFL matchup. And as much as I do think that Dusty are potentially a little underrated as a team, as often the NLC teams are, being a a less talked about region in some ways, I think that going up against any LFL team is always just a very difficult task. Dusty coming in 2-0, if they could cap off their first round robin at 3-0, suddenly you can walk away from that feeling very confident, and that of course gives you that first place going into the playoffs draw coming out after that point, and that would be very important. Lots of stakes attached to this one, given how many strong teams we've seen across the group stage so far.
Yeah, I think that is a big difference compared to, say, Spring EU Masters, where you had a few teams who you were like, these look like the front runners. This time around at the Amazon EU Masters, you've got Unicorns of Love, throw the name of that. Every single one of those LFL teams looking so good as outside Camilius takes a bit of a chunk there, perhaps more than he was anticipating. We'll see whether that actually plays out at all.
You see, the thing is,
we're still talking big picture, this kind of happens.
It's like, while the Callista and the Renata are really nice at level 1, Aphelios isn't a champion until level 2, but once he gets to that level 2, he's really happy about life. You can get yourself some strong trades at that point, particularly with Denvoxner and Sten being very competent 2v2 bot laners themselves. They are worthy of that kind of respect. So we haven't seen any of our big, we haven't seen the first hammer blow fall anywhere. And as you're saying, GameWard are typically potentially a bit passive in the early game. Dusty, it really comes from their lanes first in my eyes, and they're very happy to play around farming up to their first skirmishes where they've been very effective so far. And I'm trying to think who that favors, because I think once you get to that Herald fight, I think that GameWard have such an overwhelming advantage with potential of an all-null coming in, the first Ariel and the first Lee Sin kick of the game. Those can be very, very important, never mind if those bot lanes get involved too. So Dusty, I'm looking for them to not fall into the trap of GameWard just drawing them into an objective at that level 6 mark where they should be a little stronger, and see whether they can find their own power spikes a little later on, particularly when they can get in some of these Darius-sided 1vx scenarios with a bit of help to turn things around.
You're kind of waiting on, say, that first item, so Darius has the damage to make sure the resets come through. Similar sort of deal with like the Zoe for the poke landing through, and Aphelios would love a Gale Force before he starts really trying to match up against something like that, those level 6 marks you called out. We'll see whether that actually plays out as the game goes on, of course, because the early shove did come through, and Inax did get that early plate because of that early shove, but right now it is pretty stable. Backing up, forces the flash by just popping the ghost, and You can feel Nightmare nodding his head from here going, yes, that is exactly how you want to play that matchup.
Exactly, because you stack up 1 or 2 auto attacks if you get a W reset. If you then get pulled in for the extra slow, an extra couple of stacks, when Darius gets his passive on you early, no one wins that trade. Even the stuff like Trundle, one of the kings of level 1, can't do that. In fact, the only champion I can remember in recent memory that could beat Darius at that point was actually Gwen on her release state, because her E was such an attack speed steroid that you can even beat stuff like Trendemir as well, which is really crazy. But even with that, Kerberos doesn't need to worry about those champions this one. It's an Ornn. And Ornn, as much as he is filling a lot of roles within League of Legends, very happy to run away from that situation and not fight Darius.
Absolutely, and we'll see whether that plays. Of course, Melodic has actually gone towards the spellbook, maybe to have more options to deal with a Darius. Well, can't really get away with something like a grasp.
Exactly right, because you think of the summoners which you have, and the summoners, the summoners you can use in fights. They're definitely much more usable than trying to trade auto attack for auto attack and get at risk of those stacks. It's just something which will be very interesting to track, and especially when you can get yourself something like an exhaust later into the game, that can be very, very important for someone like a Wukong and a Darius later into the game. And speaking of this, dominance in the 1v1 and not wanting to trade auto attacks to Darius, Kerberos starts proxy farming. There's no threat on the top side. Why can't you, you know? It's a good call by Kerberos.
He knows that the bot lane, the dragon's being taken, so Kerb takes that opportunity to force that one out. Of course, now Melonic's got level 6, maybe a little bit riskier. Will instead take this opportunity to reset on the blast code for the additional safety. And see what he goes back and gets. I suspect something like that Hearthbound axe.
So that's the movement speed coming through. So, stun again, just wait until those ultimates come in. Got that Herald up in a minute and a half. That's where I think that maybe GameWard should be looking towards. Particularly someone like an Ornn. Ornn can really switch those Herald fights up for you. And that's, of course, what we called out a little earlier. But you can also see what happens. Ooh, Charm traded that.
Bubble misses, Charm doesn't, and Backlund takes a tower shot for it. Has to flash away as the Spirit Rush is popped. That is the price of getting hit by a Charm that close to the tower.
There you go. So Checklight finding their own individual advantages. Backlund able to sustain back up, does have the Corrupting Potion, but it's a micro advantage. See what they can do with that one. Of course, we said that GameWard have a strong mid-jungle 2v2. This one's just the mid lane in this case, but GameWard not looking to exploit anything beyond that.
Sten's just coming up to throw down some of those minion dematerializers and give a little bit of assistance over to his dear sport. And in fact, that might actually have been inspiration from Zoe, which would make a lot more sense considering she's running the spellbook. So take that back.
Well, instead, was the Relic Shield, of course. Long gone are the days where only melee supports took range support. That's right. Excuse. So Sten comes in, takes a Herald for their own good, and walks away with it. I actually wonder, because they took that Herald, took that Cannon Roller.
Cannon minion. That's a very small
Herald. You get the XP from it, and that means that maybe you do get yourself a level 6 for one of these important fights coming up soon. But once again, we've yet to see more than like 2 people on the screen at the same time from each team. We're not seeing any of these big convergences of members across the map. Both these teams very happy to just chill. Although Kerberos saying that is stuck between the Ornn and this first ult of the game from Lee Sim. Said it was important.
Plays around. Decimate gets knocked up. There is the call of the Forge God. I don't think he's got anywhere to go. There's going to be so much CC. Nowhere to go. Down they go. And an easy kill as Kerberos just roaming into the river. Perhaps it'll blind us out. Backlund in a difficult spot. Does have the stolen flash with the back out. Actually gets Sleepy Trouble Bubbles. I don't know whether there's going to be any follow-up. Stand and Linsis are around, but a little bit low. So I think, as it stands, maybe an option for GameWard to start this up. Kerb, he's respawning right now, but actually he's not going to take this opportunity to start the Baron. Then Foxney's here. Handshake lands. Nothing more to write home about right now.
So what happened there was just Dusty maybe falling into a bit of a lull with what was happening with the state of the map. But actually after this, although Kerberos overextends, goes down for a kill, which goes over the Ornn, a lot of ultimates were used by GameWard. It means that they don't have the call of the Forge God, and they don't have the kick now to potentially contest around this Herald. Dusty have to worry a little less now about some of those engage options. Gives them an angle onto the Herald. Both AD carries farming that bot wave, and Dusty, not seeing a contest onto this Herald, will take that one for free.
There was level 6 on Camilius, so I was just wondering whether they might still feel the need to go for it, but instead you can see in the bot side, Inax is going to be trading up with Den Voxney, and Kerb still held onto his summoners, knew he was dead to right, so it's still very dangerous. He managed to apprehend there and start resetting some of that damage. The marks come in and the bleed will come down, and still a little bit afraid to hit with Melonic, but managing to clear out the wave safely enough for now.
And on the bottom side of the map, then Voxney not able to protect their own jungle, and GameWard just finding a couple of small advantages, and that's something which a number of our LFL teams have started to really find practice in over this summer, being able to exploit these small advantages. Dusty looking for a big one, though. Herald in inventory, looking for a dive.
Cyclone's in, looking for a second one, using that to rocket it out, trying their best. Misses the auto! Kerberos does finally get it and walks his way out. The bleed is enough. That got bloody close, but they get away with it. They get the kill. They can even think about potentially a Herald, but no, Linces will decide to reset instead.
Okay, and this is actually kind of important. So they had the Herald in inventory, but what you want to do when you have a winning lane in top lane, you actually don't want to go towards putting that Herald in top side because you're already winning that laning phase. You get yourself very... actually, Kerberos, you don't have mana for anything. You gonna be okay there, buddy?
I think he'll be just about all right with the bleed. He's got enough for an auto reset. We'll see the replay instead, because they managed this one well enough.
It's a freebie, right? They understand what's happening with the resets. You've seen Lee Sin on bot side. This is just a free kill. And as I was saying, you don't actually even need to set the Herald down here because you're already winning that laning phase. If you're already getting CS advantages, already getting plates, why would you need to put the Herald down to get an advantage which you were already going to get? Best put it somewhere else to break a rock somewhere else on the map. And as you can see, Gold lead, which did go over with that first bleed to Menelnik in that top side, has actually flipped slightly over to the side of Kerberos with his own kill now. And Dusty walk away and even up the small amount of early game plays, admittedly, which have been happening.
Absolutely, and perhaps not unexpected considering the teams on show. GameWard, as far as, when we're chatting some of those LFL English casts, so Middlecott and Rudu were telling both of us that GameWard sometimes a bit slow in the early game. Yes. They like to play for the objectives, play to win without interacting with their opponents too much in the early game and look to cross-map and play for objectives instead, and that's kind of becoming true right now. My only worry with that is
let's take mid lane very quickly. Actually, observers, if you could toggle the vision here and see what backland is playing with, we could see the vision, because look at these pink wards either side. Wow. If you're a Zoe here, and I speak as a mid laner myself, you have to play terrified. You don't get to push up this lane. And as much as Zoe can push that wave, you don't have safety as Zoe. Who knows when someone can pop out of this fog of war? It means they don't have that positioning to go towards that objective. And see, look at this. You push up the one time. This is what happens.
The hostile takeover, comes straight on through, but there's a wild growth, keeps him alive, trying to flash forward, and they just about turn it around. Denvoxney landing that Moonlight Vigil, but they get out alive. Cost a lot of summoners and ultimates to do so, though.
Timely roam from the bot lane of Dusty into the mid lane, but you can see what happens around that mid lane. However, top side is Melnik, who's left on the island.
This is the price. They showed themselves in the mid lane, but over comes Akabane. Maybe you want to turn this around anyway. The Call Forge got summoned. Akabane trying to trade this one out. Will land the cripple, trying to strike this one out. That's going to be a dead Wukong. Chekalab picks that one up. Herald charges, though. And on the bot side, somehow, some way, Sten falls in the 2v2 under tower.
That's your level 6 from the Callista being used. It's a little later on, but they use the ultimates, and Dusty, they kind of lose control of the mid jungle, which means that both sides of the map start losing their own safety. You don't know who's going to come in from the river. Linces, Kerberos, they play towards the top side, and they get punished this time. It's Chekalad that walks away with the kill. Has a Darkstone in inventory, so that's 2 stacks onto that one. See if he builds into my favorite item into the game, Magi Soul Stealer. But Dusty losing out on both sides. This is a bit problematic for them now, because they had been surviving, and particularly in this bot side, that's a good thing. But suddenly you're looking at an 800 gold lead exploding over to the Callista, who just jumped into that turret, cleanses away that polymorph, and then starts going to town on them.
He asked them to play a little bit more aggressive, and they don't even need any mid or jungle attention. They just do it themselves, and suddenly you get wins in mid lane where you blow a load of summoners, and then you immediately get the kill in the top side, immediately get the kill in the bot side. And while it's not a huge gold lead, it is a gold lead, and that's what GameWard would like to continue building with.
What it means is that you are just building it into that vision advantage, right? Because you get to this point where so many players of Dusty are like, oh, we'll get a couple of items. Yeah, but with what vision are you going to be able to farm your waves to get that gold, to get those items? There's this multi-step process which GameWard is sitting here and saying, well, we're just going to cut this plan off nice and early. Very intelligent play for them to just stop these carries of Dusty being able to play the game.
Doing their very best to do exactly that. And the goal's where they need it to be. It's on the Ahri, it's on the Callista. Yes, there's just slight leads to Linces and Darius for Kerberos. But honestly, the fact that you've got these two champions, you're wanting to snowball on that 1 to 2 item park ahead early on is great news for GameWard. They're going to have to continue doing it, though, because this gold lead in, say, 10 minutes is not what they're looking for.
Yeah, and Dusty actually have managed to get a little bit of control around the bot side of the map for the first time in the last few minutes. Double pink wards, the Skull Shrine and 2 wards alongside it. So actually, bot side from GameWard of Inax and Camillus, they are sat there and they're not pushing up and abusing their 2v2, deciding to play it safe, which is the correct option in this case. However, that doesn't mean that backline can keep pushing up. this Zoe hasn't really been able to fish for those bubbles over the wall, hasn't really been able to impact the rest of the map. It really has been Shekelad and Akabane looking towards the river plays first and foremost. And Dusty, they would really love to arm wrestle that control away sooner rather than later to get Backlund into the game.
All the while, though, we've got 30 seconds until second Herald will spawn. It looks like Dusty, with the pressure Kerberos is getting, to try and use that one. But in the mid lane, as you said, Akabane gets the kick, lands the Q afterwards, trying to play this on Backlund, though, but the Q2 will allow Shekelad to secure the kill. Linsas is around, but Akabane on this Lee Sin, starting to take over just a little bit.
Again, it's the mid-jungle, it's GameWard using that vision advantage, and Backlund, this player which we as NLC casters have praised so much over summer. Heck, he was even in the shortlist for MVP. No, this guy's been shut out of the game. And GameWard have just looked at this player and said, how do we make you useless? How do we make you not impact this game? And it has started through that vision control, various members roaming down to mid and controlling that river. Now, Backlund will be out on the map sooner after that respawn. It does mean that Linsas and crew can get themselves that second Herald, but they are looking down the barrel of what is now a significant gold lead. And of course, a couple of dragons stacked up too. It's an Ocean Rift, and that is any rift at this point. Any soul has increased in power ever since the dragons have gained a little more power for themselves. 50% per dragon taken. You stack up 4 of them, and you've actually got a lot of combat stats compared to what you had before.
Alex, I'm going to interrupt you because you need to look in the Ari's inventory.
Yes. Shekelad has been doing some light reading. 4 stacks on the Magi Soul Stealer.
Very light.
And well, it's a light reading to give an L to the other side. And thing is, at this point, is when you buy a Magi Soul Stealer, it's a very cheap item. And when you're sat on your mythic item, it means you get a mythic passive, and it means you can look for plays, charm dodged away from. You can see the playmaking potential. One kill like this and suddenly start snowballing out of control.
Does mean the Spirit Rush is down, though, for what would be the soul point fight. Now Backlund, with a little bit more control of the river, finally can start helping Linsas do something like this. On the other side, called the Force God is summoned. Linsas kicked over the wall. Hostile takeover is fantastic. And Akabane's gone in, and he's burning his way down. Stopwatch comes down, though, and Linsas in trouble. Speedy bubble ball misses on the other side. Denvox is doing his best. In goes to Darius, but he can't get the kill until just now. Shut down onto Shekelad, and goodbye, Pages. The library card is getting revoked. That book is coming with no pages back in it.
Well, at least it was only on 4, right? He says trying to cope his way out of this one. But Dusty, they abuse the fact and exploit the fact that GameWard, as you were saying, did use a lot of their ability to go forward. And just when GameWard are grouping up to look towards what's going to happen, Dusty have hit their 1-item spike. A lot of these champions love to play around that, and a well-timed bubble, a well-positioned engage, meaning that Dusty break the dragon stacking, and now Camilius is out in the middle of nowhere.
Overcome the rest of GameWard, though, and he's going to have to flash the other way. Uses his second flash to escape there. Thought he'd caught Camilius, but the rapid collapse from GameWard protect the support.
So Backlund was looking for Camilius, but instead finds himself down a flash. But Backlund finally gets onto impacting this game. And we were talking about how Backlund, wow, great player that's been so good in summer and one that we've praised so much. Haven't really managed to impact the game up until this point. Lands 1 bubble, the rest of the team follows suit, and Dusty managed to get the Darius into the fray. It's another kill for that Darius coming out of this. A dragon, which means that you're not staring down an early soul point. And that's actually very important for the side of Dusty. They managed to stabilize a little bit now to this point.
Do indeed. And all the while, though, towers are falling. Dusty yet to get any. And of course, no one, I think the Herald got summoned. So I'm not sure where it got summoned.
In mid lane. We saw it at the end of that replay, and it slammed into mid turret, taking off half its HP. But it's not enough to force it down. Now you've got the Kalista parked in that lane. Good luck returning to kill that, Dusty.
It'll take a little while, and yes, they lose out on that fight, but GameWard still trying to make the best of it and doing what they're used to doing, which is finding ways to cross-map. You could see the defense of Camilius led into the top lane tower, and yes, this Darius is certainly very strong. But at the minute, Dusty lacking that map control, and every time they manage to get it, it's been so fast from GameWard to come back and contest and remove Dusty's vision.
Yeah, it has really been Dusty trying to move across certain areas of the map in waves, getting everyone into mid lane with Kerberos and Stend being there at the same time. Kerberos rid of muscle, Stend there for the actual wards themselves. And that's why they've managed to get some control over the map. Now, they are doing a pretty okay job, considering the champions which are on GameWard's side, particularly on the bot half of the map. Of course, the Ornn being able to follow up from very long range. I expect GameWard to continue having that vision control for a little while, but Dusty at least keeping some defensive wards in the place. But Linkus, he was looking for it.
trying to get his way out, uses the Cyclone, has a second option for that one, no flash though, but manages to bait and switch. And there's still an ultimate from Sten, so Paramount burned, but Lincest gets his way out, only costing himself an ultimate.
It is, but what is this going to cost? Is this going to cost them the turret? See the amount of ultimates available from GameWard. They can try and zone out, try and look for a dive.
They get the handshake onto Denvox, but he throws out the ultimate in trade, and Inax chunked down to about half HP and has to be very careful because the blades whirling around Denvox would be a deadly thing for the Calista to fight with right now as Kerberos uses this opportunity to find the 1v1, gets the procs, Kastark trading back, decimates landing, knocks him way down, but a stopwatch buys time, but how much of it is just not enough? The Noxian Dilla team comes down and he executes the Forge God. Kerberos still trying to trade himself, gets more stacks, he's still looking to reset. Oh my god, this Darius is finally shut down. But that god inches away from disaster all the while because so many members went to stop Kerberos rampage. They're on the bank. Checkalad though, do a 1v4, hold them off the bank. But a wonder getting in there, he's throwing out the W and all the while Denvox makes damage. Two managed to trade this one out down 3,000 HP and they're just not here. They're gonna have to give it up. It's going to Charm though onto Zoe, but they've got a wild growth. And Dusty gets the Baron.
They get the Baron. They have Calibrum Crescendum, the rifle turrets, the auto attack resets.
And that sleeve
gets the kill.
What a sleepy bubble, and suddenly Dusty managing to match, but the teleport coming through. Can they escape Denvoxney? Severum, Calibrum will try and trade this one out. Melonic stepping forward, trying to land the volcanic rupture. Inax taken so damn low, but so with Dusty. Managing to turn it around though, the binding eclipse not pulled out. And Dusty escaped, teleport not quite in time for Melonic.
They get away with highway robbery. They get away and they do it right in the middle of GameWard trying to pick up something on that bot side. And they do end up taking down Darius, but at what cost? Dusty catching GameWard slipping, and now with that Baron, you're looking at a map which can start being run over for them now. See if Dusty can push out, keep himself safe, and get that damn vision control back in control, and get control of Gold Lead too.
See this replay again because this bubble from Backland is a thing of beauty.
And Backland hasn't actually had many opportunities to impact the game, but then comes right back into it with two really important bubbles. But as we come back to live, Dusty, they've been over pushing and they get punished.
Sten, 1 second on the ultimate flash. Wild growth, no, not quite. Doesn't get away with it, but what about the turnaround? So much damage. Sleepy Bug Trouble Bubble lands onto Akabani, but they can't quite secure it. All the while, though, look at Kerberos. He's been the unanswerable problem in the side lane for so long, and he's got a wave and a tower to try and take down. This game do trade in mid lane.
This was exactly what I was worried about, though. If you take a Baron, sometimes you can get into a point where you can push too quickly before you actually have the gold lead. If it is a comeback Baron, and you still can get outfought. You can see that GameWard, they punish Dusty from taking that Baron and pushing a little too quickly. Chomp down on Denvoxney and Sten. They get themselves onto Soul Point now, and what could have been a game-controlling play from Dusty turns out into GameWard just taking another step further forward.
Very best indeed. And GameWard are so good at this, and what a close game it's been. That is only 2,500 gold for the entire graph pretty much, and you can see how even it's been despite an early-ish gold lead for GameWard, it has stagnated and now gone back more towards even. It's 400, 500 gold that really separates these teams now.
Yeah, now we're actually starting to see the first masterwork items coming out. It's going to be a Blood Ward on the side of Inax. Yes, I do know those items
indeed
nowadays. You've drilled me well enough. Helps you win pop quiz, it turns out.
I'll pull a Viper Room for you. What do you think? What's a Gordringer upgrade from Ornn?
Ceaseless Hunger, isn't it?
It is indeed. Spot on.
Ceaseless Hunger or Endless Hunger? Ceaseless Hunger.
Ceaseless Hunger. Endless Winter is what it is for
okay.
Either first, I believe.
See this guy trying to catch me napping. Well, Melnick not going to be napping on this bot side. Might be a Backland comes down and lands a couple of skill shots, but it is one scale. Melnick having to play on the weak side really has been isolated from the rest of his team to the tune of a 3,000 gold lead in that individual matchup. And Kerberos is now Dusty's wrecking ball onto the map. This man was, of course, the architect of a great amount of their victory against X7 in the NLC finals, particularly with that Darius in that reverse sweep. And to go a quick bit on story time for those that didn't catch those storylines at that point, Kerberos has been playing in the UK and NLC scene for a very long time. In their very first finals they ever made it to, I think it was something like 6 years ago at this point, he was reverse swept in the finals by Singularity. Also, Orcs, one of the Castle Heat Masters, was the person to have reverse swept him at that point. For him to come back and get his first NLC trophy by reverse sweeping and doing it by his own means with a lot of solo kills, with a Darius and the likes, it was so satisfying for this player. The only thing left is to make a deep run at this tournament, and it would be such a good mark to try and do it here, but his bot lane
Sten gets knocked up, still has the ultimate, doesn't even get a chance to use it. Charm on to Demboxnay afterwards, into the Dragon's Rage. And GameWard punishing in this mid lane time and time again. The bot lane is down for the count.
They're down, and they keep sitting in this mid lane, and they're not able to deal with the huge amount of engage that GameWard are pulling up against them. Kerberos isn't able to impact this fight. He's in a side lane, but the rest of the map just isn't safe. And Dusty, they lose another turret in that mid lane, another host of kills, and what should be a point of power for them around this side lane, a pushing map, is becoming a bit of a liability because they can't defend their bot lane when it's parked around the map.
That ward there is so good. They land the Sleepy Trouble and they think about going for it. Shveli's is pop, but then Call the Forge God, Fate Sealed, or sorry, Fate's Call. Just so much engagement so long away.
Yeah, and you have so much follow-up from this GameWard side, right? You have pretty much every champion with high mobility or something which can follow through. Even something like the Renata gets to speed someone else to help them into the fray. GameWard being very opportunistic about the way that they're playing this game, and though it has been a bit of a slow and steady game from them, as we've come to expect, they're starting to take these opportunities more and more, particularly around this mid lane when they can isolate some of the squishier, less disengaged heavy members from Dusty.
Absolutely, and Demboxnay is really another item away from being truly dangerous. The Bloodthirster help keep him alive if he can auto-attack. Really waiting on that Infinity Edge, or Lord Dominic's Regard, something else to have reasonable damage in this one, while Kerberos is pretty much unmatchable at this point. The rest of that map, as you were saying, definitely punishable enough, and they managed to get some control.
Kerberos is here this time. Kerberos is here, and he's out of vision. Let's see if GameWard can spot anything, but they don't see him on a side lane. If he's not on the side lane, just that he is actually here at the play. Watch what he can do in these fights. If he's isolated alone in the front line, that's not particularly good. But if he can start getting target access towards someone like this Kalista somehow, some way, and start wailing on the carries he needs to, that's the fight which Dusty are looking for. So, GameWard, try and isolate that Darius, try and pin them down, separate the front light so the damage dealers can't get on top of them, but Chekalad looking for the picks.
Baron has spawned, and that's why the pressure suddenly heads on in Backland, looking for a pick over the wall. It is Dusty with control of the river, but for some reason both teams have reversed sides of the map, trying to control the mid lane. Good bubble onto Camillus, but they can't trade it out. Chekalad on the other side, trying to find his way in. Backland goes over the wall, but doesn't get that much done. Melodic body blocking. Kerberos looks for the apprehend and will not find it. While Backland is now on vision, but still lands the bubble regardless. Chekalad trading out the Lincest and definitely wins that one for now. Kerberos stepping forward, sped up by this Lulu, makes him so much harder to track. It's just back to posturing.
This is really a game of skill shots. You see that Backland knows that it's very dangerous to head forward in this game. Does have a flash that has some degree of safety, but one bad jump, and that's a charm, and that's something like the Ornn ult being pulled out. And Lincest didn't actually spot that ward. Is on vision now, is away from it, and now GameWard are going into the pit.
The hostile takeover, finally find the right word, isn't going to matter that much because Akabane finds the first kill. Lincest to the backline with the Cyclone. He's going to have to start resurrecting. Double apprehend, but kick to him before he can execute. Kerberos falls! The Darius is down, and look who's free firing. It's none other than Inax, and GameWard find 4. They lose none, and with a wave, they can try and get an inhibitor, maybe even more.
Slow and steady goes the game. Slow and steady goes the base, maybe. These are large death timers, and there's a lot of members alive from GameWard. Backland alive, but jumping forward.
Does land the Sleepy Bubble, but cannot finish up the kill. Camillus body blocks and shoots him down with the pistol. Renata Glass will protect her investments, teleporting in. I think this might just be it.
And it was on a knife's edge, but one fight seals it. GameWard, this LFL team from this such a prestigious region, takes down the NLC first seed.
It was a knife fight, but it is GameWard who find the greater wound. They will stab into the heart of Dusty. The turnaround attempted is just not enough. Vive la France, GameWard remain undefeated, while Dusty suffer their first loss.